Welcome to the Halo Forge epidemic. This is Psychoduck, and today I'm here with another design talk video, and today I wanted to talk about one-sided objective and specifically One Flag CTF. Now this will have some details in it which are usable throughout one-sided objective design, and even some things which apply to other types of flag design like multi-flag CTF design. But I'm going to be focusing on talking about One Flag CTF. So if you're participating in the recently announced Meet Your Maker squad contest and you're looking to do a One Flag map, hopefully this will be a little bit helpful to you. So in talking about One Flag CTF, there are basically three main topics to cover. You have the placement of the flag itself and the defender's base, if you will. You have the flag capture point in the attacker's base, and then you have the routes and positions connecting those. So if we talk first about the defender's base and the flag placement, there are a few important things to talk about here. One of the biggest things which I see people do in both one flag maps and just regular multi-flag maps as well, which is really a pet peeve of mine, is people tend to place the flag in the furthest back point of the map, right up against the outer wall of the map. And this causes a few problems because A, if it's right up against the back wall of the map, you're really only attacking the flag from the front, which really limits the sort of directions that the flag is being approached from and the way the flag is being defended. But B, and this is almost more important, is that it doesn't leave the defenders any room to spawn behind the flag. So if attackers push in to the base to pull the flag, it's going to push the defenders to spawn elsewhere. And if the defenders can't spawn behind the flag, they're going to spawn out in front of the flag, which gives them a head start on cutting off the attackers as they pull the flag. And it sort of makes that attacker push much more difficult. So having the flag up against the very back of the map is generally not a good idea. If you can have some sort of backfield spawn area behind it and have the flag pushed forward a little bit more in an area which can be approached from multiple directions, it will really pay off and make the whole defender's base play much better. And don't overthink the base too and try to make it too much of a typical base. Make sure that it's it doesn't have to have a designated flag building. It might just be a platform that the flag is on. Don't overthink that, but be sure to put some thought into the actual defender's spawn area behind that, because that's something which I think is overlooked very often. And of course, make sure that you don't just have a backfield spawn area for the defenders which they can easily be locked in behind the flag, because you don't want to just have them get completely spawn trapped in most cases. Now there are arguments for spawn trapping. It can be, it obviously has a place in competitive play, but you don't want to just force them to spawn in a location that is inherently in a spawn trap when the attackers are pulling the flag. So those are some of the important things about the actual flag location. But aside from that, you definitely don't want to have the flag placed in a super enclosed area most of the time. You want it to be visible from various lines of sight, and most importantly, you want other parts of the map to be able to interact with that flag placement. So if your flag is just in a room in the back of the map, the place you're going to defend from is the entrance to that room, right? But you don't want the defenders to just sit in a room with shotguns and guard the flag. You want them to actually push out and control the entire map and control different positions on that map which have lines of sight which allow them to interact with the flag. So that kind of takes us into talking about the positions and the routes themselves. So the important thing you have to keep in mind with one flag is that the way a position works is very different depending on A, whether you're an attacker or a defender, and B, whether the flag is at home or not. Because once the flag is pulled, the attackers take a somewhat defensive role, and the defenders actually take a more offensive role to try to get their flag back. So you have to think about the different ways that these routes and positions are used. The positions need to both have merit defensively and offensively, and then of course that changes when the flag is pulled. Another thing is that you need to think about how your routes interact with each other, because there are a few things that people do here that don't work so well. So one thing is that people will have a single obvious route that the flag will always go, and if the flag goes the same place every game, then it doesn't really work so well. It's kind of pointless when every game plays exactly the same way. So you want to have a variety of routes, each with different benefits and disadvantages, and that's going to encourage players to take the flag different ways. It's also going to remove the sort of stalemate-y gameplay, and of course there is a place for stalemates. Tug-of-war gameplay, really choke points have their place, but if the map becomes too linear, then it's not going to be very replayable, because it's going to play very similarly each time. So having a variety of routes which are all worth using is important, and then also having routes which can be connected in various ways, so that players can start taking the flag down one route, but then they can sort of switch and combine that with a different route to pull the flag, and that sort of thing. So in talking about the routes and positions, one of the things that I like to think about in designing this type of map is the concept of a secondary objective. So obviously in One Flag CTF, your primary objective is either to defend the flag or to capture the flag. But secondary objectives are these more implicit things where if you complete this secondary objective, it might change the tide of the battle and allow you to pull the flag differently or something. So the most obvious example of a secondary objective is something like a switch in a gate, where you're flipping a switch to open a gate or lower a bridge to make the flag easier to pull. And there's merit for these. Obviously, with the scripting system in Halo 2 Anniversary, we have a lot of freedom in how we do that, though some people are a little on the gimmicky side with how they implement this sort of thing. Just be sure that if you're going to use a switch, that it's very obvious what the switch does, and that it has a very, very defined purpose, because sometimes people like to just have a route and say, oh, I'll throw a gate in here. But if you are really thoughtful about how you do that, it can be very interesting. But there are less obvious forms of secondary objectives as well. You can do things like simply to have a position where if the attackers hold this certain position, they can affect where the defenders are spawning and make it easier to push into the base and capture the flag, or to pull the flag, or what have you. So the whole concept of secondary objectives is interesting because it gives players something else to do. You don't just want like 6 people on a team all throwing bodies on the flag to move it. You want them to actually fan out and control different parts of the map in order to pull the flag or to defend the flag. So another thing with the routes, and this actually feeds into the flag return point, is that on some maps you kind of have a point where once the flag moves past a certain threshold, it's just gone. Like where once you pull the flag past a certain point, the defenders are powerless to stop you from scoring. And part of that comes into play with the actual return point. So a lot of times people like to have the flag return point be this sort of secluded thing in an area which is just clearly owned by the attackers, and the fight is just to get it there. But oftentimes with that sort of design, once the flag gets close to there, it's just the attackers can score it if they throw enough bodies at it. The defenders have no shot at returning it. So having a return point which is actually exposed and very contestable is important. So again, if you have those positions which can interact with the return point, have lines of sight over the return point, you can encourage people to use more of the map. You don't want them to just you don't want a defender to just go sit at the return point with a shotgun and keep the flag carrier away. You want them to control various positions on the map to do so. But having that return point be very exposed and very contestable, and not just a place where the attackers can spawn right next to and just grab the flag if it's getting close to there and just throw bodies at it, is really important. So if you have that exposed to a lot of lines of sight within reach of the defenders. It's all very important to do that sort of thing. And if you can kind of do that, then you get all of the benefits of if you combine all this, I should say, you get the benefits of like the attacking being about more than just pouring into the base from one direction and pushing the defender spawns out. You're controlling the whole map as either team, controlling the routes. You're using different routes, and then there's a struggle to move the flag the whole way. So it's not just very difficult as you're close to the defender's base, and then it gets gradually easier the closer you get to your own base. So if you can avoid that, that's really important. And yeah, all of this just combines to really make for a great One Flag CTF experience. Of course, things like vehicles come into play. You need to balance the travel times so that you can't just get the flag in a Warthog and just immediately take it home. You can have things like super risky routes which are a bit shorter. One thing that I've seen a lot with defenders bases, which can be kind of interesting, is say the flag is on a platform and it's super easy to drop the flag off the platform immediately, whereas it's somewhat difficult to walk the flag off the platform to one side or another. But if you just drop the flag right off the platform, it lands in a very, very dangerous exposed location, and then if you walk it off to one side or another, you're struggling a bit more to get it out of there. The reward is less immediate, but then you don't end up going through such an exposed, dangerous location. So it's just kind of a risk versus reward thing there. And in general, just keeping in mind, balancing the reward of using a position or a route with some inherent risk is just really important. So anyway, I think that about wraps it up for what I wanted to talk about in regards to One Flag. Hopefully you guys find this helpful. If you are designing a One Flag map, or even if you're working on a multi-flag map or some sort of other one-sided objective map, I think there are still some important nuggets to take away from this. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Good luck if you are participating in the Meet Your Maker contest, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.